All right, video time. I'm going to keep this short because I have a lot of things to do today. But however, last night the U.S. Midwest had a fairly remarkable tornado outbreak. 8 people died. I think all of them died in the upper Midwest, so closer to the Great Lakes. It was an enormous storm. Now, we've been hearing warnings about this coming storm for several days now. And it stretched from the actual storm front along which storm events can take place, stretched from East Texas in the south all the way to, like I said, the Great Lakes, Michigan in the north. And there were places all along that storm front that could have had tornadoes, and they had tornadoes, so it was pretty bad. I became curious this morning. I was looking at the death toll. I was like, okay, so people who live in tornado country understand tornadoes, and a lot of them not only have behaviors, ways to escape the tornado, but a lot of them also have structures like basements and tornado shelters and some other things, or they know to go somewhere to get away from the worst of the impacts. So in places where they have fairly frequent tornadoes, which it turns out is fairly unique to the U.S. Midwest and the South, people, quote unquote, know what to do, end quote. So when there's 8 fatalities, and none of these tornadoes were really huge. These were not the EF5, EF4 bunker busters. I think maybe I heard this morning that somebody thought we won't know the official measure until the professionals get out there. But someone who is familiar with the tornadoes said, yeah, it felt like an EF3. Now, an EF3 is nothing to sneeze at. An EF3 tornado will absolutely break you off, okay? Destroy your home, turn your car upside down with you in it, and all that kind of stuff. But 8 fatalities seemed a bit unusual to me. I was like, that's interesting. That many people, and these were not EF5 tornadoes that can literally scour entire neighborhoods down to the foundation. So if you're in that house that gets scoured to the foundation, you're probably dead. These were not those, and those are kind of rare. But I do know from past discussions that one thing is happening that is going to be a problem for people. Tornado Alley, the place where, again, most tornadoes happen and people sort of know what to do. It is gradually moving east geographically. The place where we expected a lot of tornadoes is moving east of its sort of traditional tornado alley. It's getting into new parts of the country where people, again, moving east means that people probably are accustomed to getting tornadoes, but do they have tornado shelters? Have their houses been built to withstand high winds and those kinds? And do they know what to do? Are their governments providing them with places to ride out a tornado if there's a big set of storms coming? Maybe, maybe not, because Tornado Alley officially is more to the west. So we know Tornado Alley is drifting to the east. Now you might ask, why is that happening? I don't know. I haven't heard. My guess is global heating, but I haven't seen any papers on the topic. I'd have to do some research. But it's happening. It is happening. I'm not making that up. Other people have noticed. Now, this storm that showed up yesterday and last night that had everyone nervous. Everyone was terrified of what this thing was going to do. It wasn't so much that it moved east or west, it was huge. It was gigantic. It covered, well, I guess the number is that 70 million people in the U.S. were under tornado warnings, severe weather warnings, which can include tornadoes. 70 million Americans. So that's like, what, a quarter of the population? And these are not highly populated areas, really. I mean, it's not like it happened in California. So regardless, and then 8 people died. So I did a little bit of research, and I don't know if I want to put this up. on the screen. Oh, maybe I can. Let me see here. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, okay. So I asked the question, are tornadoes in the U.S. Midwest during March unusual? And I'll read this to you just in case you don't have your screen handy. Here was the response. This is the AI response from Gemini, which generally is pretty good. While March is considered the beginning of the ramp up for severe weather, tornadoes in the U.S. Midwest during this month, March, have historically been less common compared to peak season in May and June. So March is sort of the beginning of tornado season, but it doesn't come in abruptly. It's a ramp up. So you expect a chance of a tornado or a few, and then the main event is between May and June. So March, technically you could have a tornado, but I wouldn't expect a severe weather event that spanned 12 states, and then when it showed up, killed 8 people. Okay, that's not March. That's May, June, July. That's not March, but it happened. And we're early March. We're not even late March. However, recent years have seen a significant and potentially record-breaking increase in March tornado activity across the region. I'll read that again. Recent years, so I think it's technically since 2022, have seen a significant and potentially record-breaking increase in March tornado activity across the region. That's data, folks. And if you want to say, oh, we've always had tornadoes in March, okay, well, guess what? That's not true. I mean, yes, it is the beginning of the season, but in recent years, there had been a significant and potentially record-breaking increase in March tornado activity across the region. I kind of felt that was true, especially when there's 8 people dead. See, you have to kind of understand data. So 8 people dead, that's tragedy. But for me, when I know that people in tornado-prone areas know what to do to avoid death, and who even have tornado retreat structures underground, a lot of them do, to avoid death. When you get 8 people killed, and it wasn't even an EF5 or an EF4, then for me, that's data. Okay? I don't let things go. I don't let things just sweep past me and say, wow, 8 people dead, that's a tragedy. Back to sports. To me, that's data. And that's why I came and I asked this question. I'm one of the few people on earth who will do that. I'm not sure why that is. I think part of it is because I'm frightened. When you're frightened, you really start to pay attention. When you're afraid, when you're in the woods by yourself and you're afraid because you just saw some animal moving in the brush, just a sight of an animal. When you're afraid and you just saw something moving in the brush ahead of you, then once you become afraid, every sound in that forest is going to be data. Data. Not something to ignore, not something to write off as, a thing, but it's going to be data because you know you're in a bad place. So I knew this was a huge storm that was coming. I knew from the people who are professionals who were talking about this approaching storm, they said this is a bad storm. This is record-breaking. This is historic. This thing is huge. People will not understand. People will not take this seriously because it's March and the real season doesn't start until May. And so if you do a big tornado announcement and you have a storm, chasers are out there going to look at the tornado and you have all these warnings and all these tornado warnings and all these EMS alerts go out, emergency messaging system, management system, messaging system. Emergency messaging system. Anyway, your phone rings in the middle of the night. All right, all these EMS messages go out, and people just ignore it. They just straight up ignore it, just flat out, whatever. It's March. Let me know when there's a real problem. That's their attitude. And I was watching some news reporting this morning. The news people had gone into a neighborhood that had been impacted by what was thought to be a tornado. Again, it's so early in the morning. They happened all night long. No one really knows what happened. They heard the winds. They heard the debris. They heard people screaming. They got the EMS message, and it was all dark all night. The power went out, and then they survived it. They knew their house was intact. Maybe the window was broken, but otherwise they were fine. And in the morning, they go outside. And in the morning, the news people come. And they got the cameras, and they got the microphones, and they got the lighting, and they got the big van, and they got the everything. And they start asking questions, and the people have just come out of the house, right? And they're like wandering around looking through their neighborhood, and the cars are upside down, and the trees are split in the middle, and branches are all over people's houses, and there's roof damage, and there's broken windows, and there's a car flipped upside down, and another branch fell out of the car, and they're walking around their neighborhood, and they're like gobsmacked. What in the hell was this? And of course, they're thinking in their head, it's March. It's March. What? This is Michigan. Tornado Alley is 1,000 miles south of us. No, there's been 3 days. 3 solid days I knew this thing was coming. Because I'm afraid. You see, that's what it is. I've become afraid. I'm paying attention. Every time I hear something, every time I see something, I don't let it go. I keep it. Put it in the back of my head. Put it in a drawer somewhere. Put it in a drawer. And this morning, when the news crews came and they were walking around the neighborhood looking at the catastrophe and talking to the neighbors were coming outside. They found a woman, and she was willing to talk to them. And she says, "Yeah, I got the message on my phone. I got the EMS last night, and I didn't think anything of it. We get those all the time. And nothing ever happened, so I just ignored it." And her neighborhood was basically turned upside down by a tornado that was part of a record-breaking tornado outbreak that spanned from West Texas all the way to the Great Lakes. It's bigger than most countries in the world. That area was the size of was the square area of most countries, and it was all of it severe weather. Much of it subject to tornado outbreaks last night. 8 people died. Huh. Well, that's interesting. 8 people died. I wonder what that was about. Okay, it was in the northern end of it, Michigan. And one other state, I can't remember which one it was. But also in the north, okay? And these people are thinking Tornado Alley. Oh, that's Oklahoma, right? That's Missouri. That's East Texas. And, well, you'd be right. That is Tornado Alley. But this storm was different. Now, I don't get on here to discuss weather, right? That's not me. I'm not about that. I'm about global heating. I'm an Earth system scientist. That's what I care about. And yet this morning I got up, I heard that 8 people were killed, and I came on here and I asked the question, are tornadoes in the U.S. Midwest during March unusual? Let's continue with this, shall we? Because there's some nuggets in here. There's some nuggets in here if you want to be afraid. If you want to start paying attention and you want to be the person who can hear the snap of a twig, who can sense that data is pointing to something dangerous, then this is where you start, okay? Let's start with this. Historical context versus recent trends. Typical patterns. Historically, March tornado threats are highest in the deep south, Texas, Louisiana, and lower Mississippi Valley. As spring progresses, this threat typically shifts north and northwest into the Midwest and plains. So there is a time when the north and the northwest can become engaged in tornadic activity, but it's later. Recent records. Recent data suggests March is becoming a much more active month for the Midwest, and there are 3 bullet points. March 2025, last year. Preliminary data reported 300 tornadoes, the most for any March since records began in 1950. The most for any March. That was 2025. That was last year. Second point. March 2022 to 23. Both years saw over 200 tornadoes, with March 2022 holding the previous confirmed record of 234. Again, 2025, there was reportedly 300. So the number goes up with each passing segment of time. 2026 activity. As of March 7th, today, A major outbreak has already resulted in at least 8 deaths and significant damage across Oklahoma and Michigan today. That's the nice thing about these AI tools. Unlike Wikipedia or something else, they can incorporate immediate events. So the tornado outbreak last night, this seemed to me really weird. Really violent, by the way. I'll come back to that in a moment. Extremely violent and really strange. Turns out it is. I get up this morning and I ask a question, and it turns out it is. Factors driving the shift. Remember, the shift is that March is becoming more active month for the Midwest for tornadoes. Factors driving the shift, and there's 3 of them. 1, atmospheric clash. March is a transitional month where cold Arctic air frequently meets warm, moist air surging north from the Gulf of Mexico, creating the unstable conditions necessary for supercell thunderstorms. So it's because we're transitioning from winter to spring. So you would kind of expect this behavior. And in fact, since, the strong tornado activity begins in May, well, May is spring, end of spring, start of summer, right? So that's not too surprising. Point 2, climate and patterns. Experts note that transition years from La Nina to El Nino. Do I have to talk about that? Anybody want me to talk about that? Raise your hand. Okay, a few of you want to hear about that. We'll look at that. Experts note that transition years from La Nina to El Nino, the ENSO, often result in more active spring tornado seasons. Additionally, human-caused climate change has contributed to, quote, early spring heat, end quote. More on that in a minute. With temperatures in the Midwest recently reaching 14 to 34 degrees Fahrenheit above average, fueling severe weather risks. We had this year, this winter, so that's 2025 to now, 2026. We had the hottest winter on record in the lower U.S. 48 states. Now, you don't want to believe that? Well, that's fine. But we're being data-driven here. We're not being driven by folk science. We're not being driven by people's personal opinion. We're not being driven by, what you think could be true and what must be a hoax. Okay, we're not being driven by any of that. We're just being driven by data. And I've seen this data, that the lower 48 states, at least the western 2/3 of it, experienced the hottest winter on record. Oh, we had the hottest Christmas on record. So it's not like there wasn't data. We knew in Christmas 2025 that we were in for something unusual. Turns out now that winter is basically over, meteorological winter is over. Now that basically winter is basically over, we can run the math, run the numbers, and lo and behold, it was for a large part of the country the hottest winter on record. And if you're thinking, oh, but there was all that snow, if you're thinking that meant that was the coldest winter on record, it wasn't. Even with all the snow, even with all the record cold snaps, even with all that, not excluding any of that, it was still the warmest winter on record. Oh, there's so much I could say about this. Okay. Every year, we have a hot season here in the Northern Hemisphere. We have a hot season called summer and a cold season called winter. Sometimes in summer, you have really hot days, and they maybe set record heat here and there around the place. Sometimes in the dead of winter, you get cold records being set, cold here and there, different places, all right? What you would expect on average over a couple of decades, what you would expect, and this would be your intuitive expectation, and you'd be correct to have this intuition about the thing. In any given year, you would have just about as many record heat days as record cold days, because it's kind of a random thing, right? It's kind of just like noise in the weather patterns. Some days are really hot and some days are really cold, and it kind of balances out. For about the last 20 years, climate scientists have noticed. Data, this is data, people. You don't want data? Go fuck yourself, okay? Climate scientists have said that we are now getting more record hot days than record cold days compared to a long-term average. I'll repeat that. I could go find the data if I had to. I've seen the chart. It's hard to interpret because these kinds of charts are difficult to interpret. These are time series charts, and they're dealing with averages, and I can picture it in my mind. I've seen it so many times. So I'll just interpret it for you. Even though you would expect as many record-breaking hot days as record-breaking cold days, and it would kind of, in your mind, you're thinking it averages out, okay? Or at least it's just noise. It's just noise. What's happening is, according to the data, you don't like it, I don't want to hear about it. What's happening is, there are statistically more record-breaking hot days than there are record-breaking cold days by a lot. By a lot. And so when someone else generates a different chart and they tell me, yes, for about 2/3 of America, the winter just ended, the meteorological winter just ended, was record hot. So all that lines up for me. We actually had, and this is how it happens, we actually had record-breaking hot days in the dead of winter. That doesn't mean it was hot, although I'll tell you around here it was. In the dead of winter, we were having days like 78 degrees, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, you're in shorts and t-shirts in the dead of winter. Now, that can happen in California. You know, California is famous for being warm. I've lived in this community for 30 years. I can tell you, in the dead of winter, for me to be working outside in shorts and a t-shirt is weird. That's just weird, okay? What is it today? It's supposed to get to 80 degrees today. You know, 7th of March is supposed to get to 80 degrees. That's a warm day in summer. Not a hot day. That's not a hot day in summer. That's a warm day in summer, 80 degrees. 82, 83, you're wondering if you're even going to work outside. That's crazy. Well, here in Phoenix, Arizona, I don't want to hear it, old timer. Okay, don't want to hear it. I don't live in Phoenix, Arizona. I live in the South Bay. Bay Area, California. We've got the Pacific Ocean 50 miles to the west. The wind blows in off the Pacific Ocean. You can't even get in the water without a wetsuit, without freezing and getting hypothermia and ending up in an emergency room, okay? The water is cold. This year, it's not. And we've had record heat right where I am because the water is not cold as it should be. And this year has been the hottest winter, whatever the meteorological winter is, in the United States history. There you go. A geographic shift, point 3. There's 3. I get distracted because I care, all right? Because I care about this subject. I get distracted. Point 3, geographic shift. There is ongoing research suggesting that Tornado Alley, quote unquote, is shifting further east and north, making states like Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan more susceptible earlier in the year than in previous decades. It's a shift. And Michigan just got head slapped. Michigan just got slapped down. 8 people killed because of that. That right there. There is ongoing research. Sorry, it's research. Yes, I know it's not your uncle's, knee telling him that this is all normal. No, it isn't. It's research. Okay, satellites. Come on, give me a break. Suggests that Tornado Alley is shifting further east and north, making states like Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan more susceptible earlier in the year than in previous decades. Well, la-dee-da. There you go. There you go, folks. Data. I don't care what you think. I don't care what your folk wisdom or your folk science tells you. We're looking at data here. You people frustrate me. Current warning, March 2026. Meteorologists from the National Weather Service and Storm Prediction Center, the people who are still allowed to work there, they had huge firings and defunding at the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center by the Trump administration. I wonder why. They don't want this discussion to come up. Gee, I wonder if there could possibly be a political reason for them not to want to have this discussion. I don't know. Do we want to get into any conspiratorial thinking about why they're defunding the Storm Prediction Center? Do we want to go there? Are we going to go there? Why? With Donald Trump and the Republicans and all the deniosphere and all the denialists and all the pinhead Republicans, why are they defunding the Storm Prediction Center? I wonder. Could it be because up here, there is ongoing research suggesting that Tornado Alley is shifting east and north, making states like Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan more susceptible earlier in the year than in previous decades? You think they don't know that? They don't want to talk about it. So they just they defund these organizations that used to get funding to study this. Why do you think we have decades of data? Why do you think we have satellites in space? Did they want to end all that? Yes, I'm a little bit frustrated. But you know what? I mean, let's be honest. I don't have these problems here. In fact, these problems don't exist really anywhere west of the Rockies. The Rocky Mountains are partially why we have Tornado Alley where it is. So, I mean, do I care? I mean, it's frustrating. I'm a scientist. I get frustrated when we destroy science and scientists, and we destroy our ability to collect data and to inform ourselves. It's frustrating to me because I know we could do better than this. I know we could help people. Hey, I know that if people of Michigan knew that this was happening, there is ongoing research suggesting that Tornado Alley is shifting further east and north, making states like Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan more susceptible earlier in the year than in previous decades. If the meteorologists who work in Michigan knew that, if they had been taught that at some point, or if they went to a seminar, let's say they had to continue with ongoing education, right? That'd be a nice thing for professionals, giving professional advice to kind of help people save their own lives. Yeah, like doctors and nurses and meteorologists now. Maybe they have a responsibility to stay current. Well, if they were to stay current, they would know that Michigan is more susceptible earlier in the year than in previous decades. So when they do their weather report Sunday night, the day before Monday, or whatever it was, Friday, Thursday night, the day before Friday, when all hell broke loose, they get up there and they do their weather report. They tell people, look, people, I know you think this is no big deal, but I just came here from a seminar where we were discussing how Tornado Alley is moving both east and north. And we live in the north, and we're Michigan. And I'm here to tell you, folks, you need to take this shit seriously. Because whatever your grandpa tells you was how it was back when he was, knee-high to a grasshopper. Whatever your granddad tells you, whatever your dad tells you is really going on. And all the rest of this is, just forget all that. Forget these old fools. They don't know anything because the Earth dynamic system is on the move. Tornado Alley is just one symptom of the Earth system being on the move. It's moving. It's got gears, it's got wheels, and it's on the move. And 8 people died in Michigan because they didn't get that part. They didn't get that part. They didn't get it. They didn't get the memo. They didn't hear the TED Talk. They didn't come to my channel. They didn't listen to Max Velocity. They don't get it. They just get up in the morning and they check to see if they're going to need an umbrella, and maybe they can wear a sweater instead of a coat, and then they get in their car and they go to work, and they come home from work and everyone's dead. And they're like, wow, what was that about? Or even worse, they get an EMS alert. Beep, 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 tornado in your vicinity, get to your safe space, and lowest floor of your house and the most interior room, and stay away from windows. And they're driving down the road saying, what's this shit about? Tornado in my vicinity? I live in Michigan. Tornado Alley is 1,000 miles south of here. La-dee-da. These people, what do they know? I'm going to go to the bar, and I'm going to get a beer, and then I'm going to drive home, and I'm not going to listen to any of this shit. I don't care what these people are doing. And then they die. What am I supposed to think about that? Do I need to care? Well, here I am. I'm on my channel. I'm ranting and raging. I guess I care. Meteorologists for the National Weather Service and Storm Prediction Center have issued high-risk warnings for the current weekend. That's right now. Targeting over 70 million people from Texas to Michigan. 70 million people. You've seen this before. If you're just listening, then you're not seeing this. This is the North Polar Vortex. It's bad. It looks really bad. It doesn't look any better than the last time I looked at this. We're in trouble, people. All right, let's bring up the menu. Let's go down in the atmosphere. Let's find the... Yeah, my wife is here. This is the jet stream. Doesn't look good. I don't know what we're going to do with this. This is bad. This is chaotic. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for you people. This never gets better. This never changes. This never improves. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to look at the ocean instead of the atmosphere. Ocean. Let's look at the sea surface temperatures. And here is why it never gets better, folks. Here is why you are absolutely doomed. It's right here. This is the Gulf of Mexico. Currently suffering what we call a marine heat wave. Let me go to not just actual temperatures, but sea surface temperature anomalies. If you want a discussion of that, go to my prior video. I'm not going to discuss it again here. This water here is exceptionally hot. We've even got exceptionally hot water. It's not exceptionally hot, but it's a heat wave off of California. That's been a problem for us this year. When the moisture, when the air comes off of this Gulf of Mexico and it goes north and then northeast, it collides with cold, dry air coming down from Canada. Both of these situations, the cold, dry air and the hot, moist air, are both caused by global heating. Or at least not caused. They have become magnified. The marine heat wave that's happening in the Gulf of Mexico is due to global heating. 90% of the heat in the atmosphere, due to the greenhouse effect, actually ends up in the water. And you think, oh, it's in the water. Well, that's nice. No, it's not. Because the water drives your weather. The water, hot water in your coastal areas, hot water drives your rain events, your storm events, your hail events, your snow events, and also, if you happen to have them, tornadoes. And later on, it'll be typhoons, cyclones, and hurricanes. Because the energy in the water spins up these cyclones. And the energy in the water, well, in this air mass that comes off the water, spins up these tornadoes. And because there's so much energy in that system, we had a predicted storm region that extended from East Texas all the way to the Great Lakes. And it was packed full of energy. It was ready to rip, people. All of this came up here, and it just went. It just went. It beat down. And people who were asleep at the wheel, who didn't get it, didn't want to hear about it, didn't believe it, just flat out didn't believe it. Got the EMS warning, looked at it. What's this bullshit? Didn't believe it. Just straight up did not believe it. And then in the morning came out and looked at all the devastation and said, well, I got the warning last night. I just didn't believe it. At least they're honest. They don't believe it because they don't get it. They don't understand what's happening. This is all physics, people. This is Earth system physics. It's physics. This is predictable. It's chaotic, and the chaos is predictable. That's how real chaos works. Real chaos. Real chaos is predictable. And we're in it. We're in it. And it never gets better. And you know, the tornado season is now March. What happens when it becomes middle of February? What happens when, the next winter is also record hot, but now it's not just 2/3 of the country, it's 100% of the country had a record winter. And what happens when, El Nino, all right, God damn it, El Nino, fine. Let's look at the El Nino. The part of the ocean in question is this segment right here. This is equatorial Pacific Ocean. You'll notice there's still a vestige of cold water here. That's the last of the La Nina. And you see a little bit of an advancing heat wave in the water. That's El Nino. And pretty soon, the El Nino will dominate and replace the La Nina. And during transitions like this, it enhances the tornado risk. In fact, the ENSO, which is what this phenomenon is, La Nina and El Nino and then back again. The ENSO, the El Nino Southern Oscillation, drives planetary weather. The Pacific Ocean is so huge, and the amount of heat coming and going during the ENSO swings is so enormous that it drives essentially planetary weather, planetary physics. Other heat waves. Look at all this yellow down here. Okay, look at all this red. Look at Antarctica. Look at all this red. The only place it isn't red down here on the bottom of the Earth is right next to the coastline. See these little blue? There's some blue water. That's cold water right next to the coastline because Antarctica is covered with ice, so you can't have marine heat waves where there's ice. But it's right up to the edge. It's right up to the edge. Marine heat waves north in the southern Atlantic Ocean and marine heat waves in the northern Atlantic Ocean. And you can see this little thing going on here. This is the Gulf Stream and the AMOC, and look at what it's doing up here. Look at all this hot water being propelled north into Greenland and Iceland, and it's even bursting past the Arctic Circle. And I'll just draw a quick little. This is the North Pole, folks. That's the North Pole, and we have hot water impinging on the North Pole. Would you look at this picture? We're having a marine heat wave impinging on the North Pole. A marine heat wave in the dead of winter. There's ice up there. We're still having a marine heat wave. And people wonder why 8 people died in Michigan. I don't wonder. Makes perfect sense to me. They don't get it. Nobody gets it. You don't get it. Your neighbors don't get it. Nobody, you'll never get it. No one will ever get it. All this normalcy bias, all this bullshit denial, and the politicians and the authoritarian figures and I'm afraid. I am afraid. I worry for you people. I shouldn't worry, should I? Because people aren't worrying for themselves. Why should I worry on their behalf? Why should I? It's a good question. I don't know. I guess I'm somebody who's fated to know, and because I know, I understand what's going to happen. And because when I see things like this, well, send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. And that's that, I guess. My novel about the collapse of civilization is available on Amazon. Link in the description. Yeah, there's a lot of global heating and climate change in it. Things weren't, when I was writing that book, things weren't as bad as this. I probably would have put a lot more in if things had been as bad as this. But they're bad enough. So I'm back on here doing this again. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear it. But I got to do it anyway because I know. Because I know. Okay. That's my burden. I am burdened to understand. Don't die.